In your school, you were always told about the pyramids of Giza and the administration of ancient Egypt. However, the bizarre, filthy, and kinky sex lives of ancient Egyptian pharaohs were intentionally skipped. That's because they are quite controversial and inappropriate if we judge them from today's standards. Pharaoh could do anything when it came to sexual practices, including having sexual relationships or even marriage with his sister, as the story of Cleopatra tells. To preserve purity, the royal family could marry even the closest members, including parents and siblings. But things don't stop here. So, how filthy and super kinky were the sex lives of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, which you are never told about? Welcome to a new episode of Black Afric Diary, a channel where we talk about Black African history, culture, arts, and civilization. It's a place where you will see the real picture of Black Africa, its stories, and the events defining it. In this episode, we will explain the bizarre and nasty sex lives of ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Let's get started. Number 1. Pharaohs and ritualistic masturbation. Ancient Egyptian beliefs regarding fertility and creation were deeply blended with religious practices. The mythological pattern of self-creation, exemplified by Adam, the first god who masturbated to produce offspring, underscored the sacred significance of procreation. This concept extended to ceremonial practices involving masturbation, seen as a ritual act imbued with life-giving potency. Pharaohs, as divine rulers, were believed to embody these principles of creation and fertility. Rituals where the pharaoh ceremonially ejaculated into the Nile River symbolized the renewal and fertility associated with the annual flooding of the Nile. Therefore, before tens of thousands of people, including women and children, the pharaoh would take out his manhood and masturbate publicly. It's because the inundation of the Nile was crucial for agriculture and viewed as a manifestation of life-giving forces, paralleling the symbolic potency attributed to semen. Number 2. Marrying and having sex with closest family members. Ancient Egyptian society evidenced prevalent marriages or sexual relationships within the nuclear family, particularly among royalty and esteemed classes of priests who symbolized earthly representatives of the divine. These privileged groups enjoyed exemptions from norms that applied to ordinary families. During the Ptolemaic period between 305 and 30 BCE, King Ptolemy II utilized incestuous marriages as a significant theme in propaganda, emphasizing the divine status of such unions and their exemption from conventional moral boundaries. Even King Tutankhamun, one of ancient Egypt's most renowned pharaohs, was involved in incestuous practices. His parents, Akhenaten and his sister, were themselves siblings. Recent DNA analysis conducted on 11 closely related mummies definitively established Tutankhamun as the product of a first-degree brother-sister relationship. Additionally, Tutankhamun was married to his half-sister. Despite the serious health risks associated with inbreeding across generations, incestuous relationships were strategically employed to consolidate power within the ruling family. Although legally prohibited, instances of incest were not confined to royalty and were observed in other segments of Egyptian society. There is another account of Cleopatras, the great female ruler of Egypt, marrying her younger brother, Ptolemy III. It was a strategic maneuver deeply embedded in the traditions and political strategies of the Ptolemaic dynasty in ancient Egypt. The Ptolemies, who assumed control of Egypt after Alexander the Great's conquests, frequently practiced sibling marriages to preserve the integrity of their royal lineage and consolidate power within the family. Upon inheriting the throne together following their father's death, Cleopatra and Ptolemy III's marriage served several strategic objectives. It aimed primarily to strengthen their joint rule and enhance their political standing during internal rivalries and external pressures. Such unions also aimed to ensure a smooth continuation of leadership and to preempt any potential disputes over succession within the royal household. Historical sources indicate that Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII's marriage was part of a broader strategy to uphold Egypt's economic prosperity and strategic significance in the Mediterranean region. Although specific details about their personal relationship and potential children are limited, the marriage adhered to established dynastic customs aimed at safeguarding the stability and authority of the Ptolemaic monarchy. Number 3. The beginning of creation. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the concept of creation is intrinsically linked to the god Atum. Atum, considered the first god, is often depicted as having created himself from the primordial chaos, known as Nun. Unlike other deities who required a partner, Atum was unique in his self-sufficiency. According to myth, Atum brought forth his children, Shu and Tefnut, through an act of masturbation. This act was more than just a means of procreation. It symbolized the emergence of order from chaos and the beginning of life itself. The imagery of Atum's self-creation and subsequent act to produce his offspring is deeply symbolic. Masturbation in this context was seen as a sacred act of creation and fertility. Atum's hand, which played a crucial role in this act, came to symbolize the feminine aspect necessary for creation. Over time, the phrase "the god's hand" evolved to have significant cultural and religious connotations. As Egyptian society evolved, so did the interpretations and applications of its myths. By the 18th dynasty, the title "the god's hand" had taken on a new meaning. It became a title held by royal women, signifying their crucial role in the realm's administration and religious practices. This title was not merely honorary. It denoted a woman's active participation in maintaining the divine order and the prosperity of the nation. Royal women who bore this title were seen as vital intermediaries between the gods and the people. Number 4. The God of Fertility. In the group of ancient Egyptian deities, Min stood out as the primary god of male fertility. Unlike Atum, whose creation myth was tied to self-sufficiency and order, Min was explicitly associated with sexual potency and procreation. Min was depicted with a permanently erect phallus, an unambiguous symbol of his domain over fertility and virility. This portrayal underscored his role as a deity who could influence and enhance male sexual performance. Min was also characterized by his feathered headdress, which, combined with his prominent phallus, made him an easily recognizable figure in Egyptian art and iconography. Men who experienced impotence or other sexual issues often sought Min's favor by making offerings of phallic figurines. These offerings were acts of devotion and desperation, indicating the importance of sexual health and fertility in ancient Egyptian society. Interestingly, Min was associated with lettuce, a plant that emitted a white, milky sap-like semen. This association might seem peculiar today, but in ancient Egypt, it was a natural extension of Min's fertility symbolism. Lettuce, therefore, was not just a food item, but a symbol of Min's power to influence and enhance fertility. Number 5. Ancient Egyptian erotica. Long before the era of X-rated websites or Playboy magazine, the ancient Egyptians had their own form of erotic art, the Turin erotic papyrus. This ancient document depicts a paunchy, balding man engaging in improbable sexual positions with a beautiful woman. The exact purpose of this papyrus remains a mystery. Some scholars suggest that the intentional depiction of men as bald and ugly was meant to create the pleasure that one gets after watching porn. The beautiful women being handled by these bald men would have created an awkward form of pleasure. Some scholars suggest it might have been a form of political satire, as it also includes several vignettes depicting animals in human roles. Regardless of its intent, the Turin erotic papyrus is an important artifact for understanding the sexual culture of ancient Egypt. It offers a rare glimpse into the private and possibly humorous aspects of Egyptian life, indicating that sexual themes were not entirely taboo, but were openly depicted in a stylized manner. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. Number 6. Evidence of same-sex relationships in ancient Egypt. The evidence regarding same-sex relationships in ancient Egypt is scant and subject to debate. One notable instance is seen in the myth of Horus and Seth, two prominent deities in Egyptian mythology, embodying contrasting aspects of kingship and cosmic order. Horus, born to Osiris and Isis, came into being after Osiris, the god associated with the afterlife and fertility, was slain by his own brother Seth. Seth, known for chaos, storms, and disorder, harbored jealousy and ambition that drove him to murder Osiris in a bid to seize his throne. After Osiris's demise, Seth usurped control of Egypt, asserting dominance over the land. However, Horus, the rightful heir to Osiris's throne, challenged Seth's claim. Their conflict symbolizes an eternal struggle within Egyptian beliefs, pitting order against chaos. The battle is more of a projection of who is dominant in a physical encounter that could take sexual turns. Both of them were to make the other submissive, much like a woman of that time. In a significant turn of events, Seth initiates a challenge aimed at asserting dominance over Horus in a sexual context. According to the myth, Seth coerces Horus into a sexual encounter, attempting to prove his authority over his nephew. In some versions, Seth ejaculates onto Horus, symbolically transferring his power through this act. Horus reacts with immediate disgust and anger upon realizing Seth's deceit and violation. In retaliation, Horus collects Seth's semen and spreads it on lettuce, a plant believed in Egyptian mythology to possess aphrodisiac qualities. Seth unknowingly consumes the lettuce, which is interpreted as a symbolic assertion of Horus's victory over Seth's attempted domination. The conflict between Horus and Seth escalates to divine judgment, where the Egyptian gods, led by Ra and Thoth, preside over the dispute. They carefully assess the actions of both gods and deem Horus the winner. Another potential reference to homosexual activity involves King Pepi II, who reportedly visited his general Sassanid at night, engaging in activities deemed unconventional for the era. However, interpretations of this fragmentary papyrus remain speculative due to the limited available evidence. The most frequently cited example of potential homosexuality in ancient Egypt is found in the tombs of Nyankhnum and Khnumhotep. These two brothers are depicted holding hands and touching noses, a gesture in Egyptian art that symbolizes intimacy like kissing. While such scenes typically portray a man and his wife, there is no definitive proof that Nyankhnum and Khnumhotep engaged in a homosexual relationship. These depictions raise intriguing questions about the nature of their bond, but do not definitively confirm homosexual activity. Number 7. Circumcision rituals in ancient Egypt. Circumcision distinguished ancient Egypt from many other contemporary cultures, a fact noted by Herodotus. While circumcision was customary among Egyptian men, foreigners visiting Egypt were not compelled to undergo the procedure. Egyptians not only practiced circumcision, but also documented mass circumcision events in texts, including one instance where up to 120 men were circumcised in a single day. This underscores that circumcision held significance beyond medical reasons, possibly encompassing social or ceremonial roles. In contrast to its acceptance in ancient Egypt, circumcision was regarded with curiosity and surprise by cultures unfamiliar with the practice, such as the ancient Hebrews and others of the time. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, underscored the uniqueness of Egyptian circumcision compared to cultures where it was not customary. Across millennia, circumcision became deeply embedded in Egyptian culture, reflecting beliefs regarding hygiene, fertility, and religious purity. These practices endured as defining elements of ancient Egyptian society, illustrating the complexity and significance of their cultural and medical traditions. Number 8. Sacred prostitution. In ancient Egypt, prostitution diverged greatly from modern perceptions. Similar to practices in ancient Babylon, it was revered as a sacred and honorable profession dedicated to the gods. Unlike today's illicit and illegal status in many societies, Egyptian prostitutes held a relatively elevated social standing. They openly conducted their trade, adorning themselves with tattoos, red lipstick, and makeup. This outward distinction from non-prostitutes emphasized the legitimacy and societal acceptance of their profession, albeit with regulated areas of operation. Number 9. Contraception and birth control. The Egyptians' attitudes towards contraception reveal a pragmatic and progressive approach to sexual health. In a culture that embraced sexual freedom, effective birth control was highly prized. Condoms crafted from sheep intestines served dual purposes by preventing pregnancy and guarding against sexually transmitted infections, a phenomenal achievement given the era. Moreover, they employed acacia gum to block the cervix during intercourse. This method was believed to prevent conception, supported by the presence of lactic acid in acacia gum, known for its spermicidal properties. Women in ancient Egypt also experimented with unconventional contraceptive methods, including the use of animal dung, including that from crocodiles, to block sperm and minimize pregnancy risks. Another method involved applying a mixture of honey and sodium bicarbonate inside the women's private parts as a contraceptive measure. Number 10. Cleopatra's first vibrator. Cleopatra is renowned for her unconventional creativity, especially in matters of pleasure. Her historical significance is closely tied to significant relationships, such as her well-known affair with Julius Caesar, which resulted in an illegitimate son, and later her involvement with Mark Antony, a romance that ultimately led to her downfall. Yet, during moments of solitude in her chambers, Cleopatra reportedly sought amusement through unconventional means. Legend has it that Cleopatra devised a novel device for personal pleasure, as recounted in unverified accounts that have persisted over time. It's said she made either a hollowed-out gourd or an empty papyrus box filled with agitated bees. The speculative theory behind this makeshift vibrator suggests that the bees' movements and buzzing within the container created vibrations, possibly fulfilling Cleopatra's rumored intentions. Although the tale of Cleopatra's bee vibrator remains shrouded in mystery and lacks solid historical evidence, it underscores the enduring intrigue surrounding her persona and the colorful anecdotes that surround her life. This anecdote offers a glimpse into ancient attitudes toward sexuality and innovation, portraying Cleopatra as a figure who, even in her private pursuits, embodied creativity and bold curiosity in unconventional ways. Number 11. Virginity. In ancient Egypt, the idea of virginity diverged sharply from that of other civilizations of its time, such as ancient Rome. While Romans esteemed female virginity as a symbol of moral purity and virtue, Egyptians held a more relaxed view of premarital relationships and the significance of virginity itself. Ancient Egyptian society approached sexuality and relationships with a pragmatic perspective. Marriage served as a vital institution for maintaining social stability and economic security. However, unlike in Roman culture where a woman's virginity was often a prerequisite for marriage and guarded closely, Egyptian marital norms centered more on economic compatibility and familial ties rather than the sexual history or purity of the individuals involved. In contrast to the stringent social consequences in Rome for losing one's virginity before marriage, ancient Egyptians displayed a more permissive attitude. Premarital sexual relations were generally accepted as long as they occurred between unmarried individuals. This leniency permeated various aspects of Egyptian life, reflected in their literature, art, and religious practices, where depictions of sexuality often lacked moral judgment. Marriage in ancient Egypt was typically arranged through negotiations between families, prioritizing economic stability and the continuity of family lineage over concerns about the prospective spouse's sexual pasts. Women enjoyed considerable autonomy in selecting partners, and divorce was relatively common, underscoring a practical approach to marital unions not centered on moral or religious ideals tied to virginity. Religiously, virginity did not hold the same moral or spiritual weight as it did in some other cultures. Egyptian religious beliefs focused more on cycles of life, death, and rebirth, with gods embodying aspects of fertility and regeneration. Number 12. First oral sex record. The myth of the resurrection of Osiris from ancient Egyptian mythology provides a fascinating glimpse into ancient beliefs and symbolism, rather than a literal historical account. The story revolves around Osiris, a central figure in Egyptian mythology, who is murdered by his brother Seth out of jealousy. Osiris's body is then dismembered and scattered. Osiris's wife and sister, Isis, plays a crucial role in the myth by gathering the scattered body parts of Osiris in an attempt to resurrect him. However, she finds that his penis is missing or damaged in some versions of the myth. To address this, Isis creates a substitute penis, often depicted as being made of gold or clay, and blows it. After this, Osiris becomes alive. The act of Isis performing fellatio on the substitute penis is laden with symbolic meaning rather than being a literal depiction of sexual acts. In ancient Egyptian mythology, sexuality and fertility were deeply intertwined with concepts of creation, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of life. The myth of Osiris and Isis illustrates these themes vividly, with Isis's actions symbolizing her role as a powerful goddess capable of restoring life and order from chaos and death. Scholars interpret this myth in various ways, often focusing on its religious and symbolic significance, rather than its literal details. The act of Isis performing oral sex on the substitute penis is viewed as a ritualistic gesture aimed at restoring Osiris's virility and regenerative power, essential for his resurrection and subsequent rule over the underworld as a god of the afterlife. Moreover, the myth underscores the importance of fertility and the continuation of life in ancient Egyptian culture. Osiris, as the god of the afterlife and rebirth, represents the eternal cycle of life, death, and resurrection. His resurrection by Isis signifies the renewal of natural order and the perpetuation of divine kingship, which was central to Egyptian beliefs about the cosmos and the role of gods and goddesses in maintaining cosmic balance. What do you think? Were the sexual practices in ancient Egypt morally wrong? Or is it true that human morality had not developed back then all over the world? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether such sexual practices exist in people of great power and wealth today. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.